All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 18 of How Do You Know That podcast with Robert Hollis. We are so glad to have you with us today. And before we get things going, if you are watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and share button, as well as the subscribe button to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you are listening to us elsewhere in the podcast universe, also please like and share this with friends and help us spread the word. Also, if you'd like to join our exclusive community, the Inner Circle, you can join us by going to roberthollis.com/join to register. There will be lots of great exclusive content, and you'll be able to participate in our special breakthrough sessions to help you move on to the next level. Today is episode 18 of How Do You Know That with Robert Hollis, and today we have a very special interview lined up with network marketing historian Ron Henley. And if time allows, we will take some questions from our audience. So if you do have a question for Ron, please go ahead and type them into the YouTube chat and we will ask them upon your behalf. Now, allow me to introduce our host of today's show. He is an entrepreneurial evangelist renowned for his incredible achievements. He is also known for inspiring countless of individuals around the globe with his unwavering determination and spirit. And he has also helped 67 people as of this date become millionaires. Known as a mentor, GPS to success, and dear friend, ladies and gentlemen, Robert Hollis!
Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Craig, the hostess with the mostest. And I'm really super excited to be able to share this with you guys today. First thing I want to say to everyone is all the super chats that happened today will be donated to Ron Henley and the in Network Marketing Museum. And we already have a person that donated. James Saunders just donated $199. So what they'll do, and I never thought about this. What I'll do is I'll throw a crazy offer out there. I'll also match it dollar for dollar as we do that. So what we'll do is we'll do that. So Craig, thank you so much for the introduction. And I want to jump right into this. For those of you that don't know who Ron Henley is one of those individuals. You guys hear how long I've been around this industry. Ron Henley signed his first application for network marketing when he was a toddler, and he'll share that he'll share that with you for a moment. But let me tell you why this podcast is so important. Is if you know people like me, I'm a NASCAR fan, right? And you look at all these people that are football fans or baseball fans, or let's say they're music fans or they're actor fans, they love acting. Isn't it amazing that people that rejoice in doing such a thing have two things? One is the Hall of Fame, which I've been blessed to be inducted into, but Ron Henley has as well. And then there's these museums, right? So when you go to, we went to Nashville, and when we see the Country Music Hall of Fame and the Grand Ole Opera, a lot of people sometimes think this industry is just a fly-by-night thing, a get-rich-get-quick scheme, and then everything's gone. But what my goal is today in inviting Ron here and also raising money for him is just to let every one of you know that if, as you decide to make this as your profession, not only would we love you to be in the Hall of Fame, but we also would like you to understand that there's so many people like, Martial Arts, Museum. You go there, you hear about Bruce Lee, but more than Bruce Lee, you get to hear about the mentors that taught Bruce Lee. So you guys are going to hear some names and some history. And I hope that you guys, when you go and promote this, that people are going to go, my God, I had no idea that this industry was that rich in history, that has been done by a lot of people, and a lot of people have helped literally millions and millions of people all over the world. So one thing is, Ron is also a dear friend of mine. He's a incredible father, a credible a husband, and he's also a very, very dear friend. So Ron Henley, come on and tell everybody hello. And
hello, everybody. Robert, I'm really excited to be here, man. I will talk about network marketing and the history of this profession at the drop of a hat. And even if you're not wearing the hat, I'll still talk about it. So this is my love. It's my passion. It has been since I've been a toddler, and my family got started in this whole thing. And I've been blessed beyond measure. So many amazing things have happened to me over the decades because of what you see behind me. And I'm grateful to be here, and thank you for the opportunity.
Well, let's start out, man. Tell everybody when Ron first, because I know that you were introduced to network marketing before you even knew what it was.
Yeah.
so tell everybody really quickly a little background on Ron and how this became a passion of yours.
Sure. It was 1968. I was 5 years old, and my dad and my grandpa, we were doing okay, but we were struggling to make ends meet. My dad was at Lockheed Martin making parts for the new C-5A Galaxy airplane. And my dad, like Robert and I, are absolute car nuts. I mean, we went to around here, we had the Peach Bowl. I live outside of Atlanta, Georgia, by the way. We had the Peach Bowl, Dixie Speedway, any drag race, stock car race, any kind of race you could think of, we went to. And all of Dad's friends and coworkers were car nuts too. So Dad was reading a magazine called Motor Trend, and there was an ad in there for this thing called the Mark II vapor injector, which is supposed to give you excess power, better performance, the whole 9 yards. And as a car nut, you're always trying to tinker and get the very best out of your engines. So he sent off for one, got it back, installed it, and he loved the way that it worked. So once he realized there was a business opportunity in it, he said, hey, this is something I've got to do. And it was a perfect match for what he loved to do. So he and my grandpa pulled their money together and signed up with the company, sent off. This was right after Halloween, 1968. So at the end of October, he sent off with that stuff. It came Friday, November the 15th, 1968. And we immediately started tearing up the garage, getting everything out of there so we could put seats in and get everything ready so Dad could give his first presentation. He invited a bunch of his gearhead buddies over. And, he was wondering, he took all of the money that my mom and dad had been saving for Christmas, which was coming quickly, and all their savings and everything. And they just poured it into this because they believed in it so much. And he got all this stuff in. We had it set up. And, I'm a 5-year-old kid. I really didn't know what was going on. Dad said, there's some people coming over. I'm going to show them this stuff. And I said, cool. He said, well, will you help me set up the room? So I'm setting up chairs and tables, and I'm helping him stack the boxes and get everything nice and neat in the garage. And people started showing up, and I started taking coats. It's cold outside. So I started taking the coats and the hats and serving coffee and whatever I could do as a little 5-year-old kid. And I sat in the back of the room while he got up there and started talking about this stuff. And he said, well, you guys all know about this thing that I've been showing you at work. He said, well, I've got them here now. Let me tell you a little bit more about it. And this is as good a time as any to show you this, Robert. You haven't seen this before, I don't think. Check this out. This is
the dealer kit.
The 5 record set that you listen to learn how to be a distributor.
So now tell everybody this again. There's vinyl records in there, right?
Yes.
On how to listen, on how to do a presentation.
On how to do the business. Yeah. Let me read some of the titles real quick. You, the distributor, the company, getting yourself organized, retail selling, personal development, enrolling procedures, building your distributorship, and the last record I'm going to get to in just a second. But he listened to all this stuff, internalized it, and he was ready to roll. And he went in worried, and I sat in the back of the room and watched all these people go absolutely bonkers over this Mark II vapor injector because they were all gearheads.
Yeah.
And he sold everything he had, plus the people that were there bought some for relatives, friends and relatives, like 25 extra. He had pre-sold. He sold everything that he had, and he had all this stuff pre-sold. So he was off and running, man, and it just went bonkers from there. Now, what I was going to share with you is this last record was personal development from somebody you may have heard of. His name is Zig Ziglar.
Wow.
Zig Ziglar was not the big Zig Ziglar he is now, or he was before he passed away. He was somebody who had come from network marketing and sales and had landed the job as sales trainer for this company. So Zig Ziglar was the corporate trainer. So Zig's records played all through the house all the time. I've got 2 of his records still up in the cabinet there. One is the Automotive Performance Opportunity, and another one is Biscuits, Fleas, and Pump Handles. Before it became See You at the Top, that's what it was called. And Dad and Grandpa played these records all the time. And when you're 5 years old and you hear something 1,000 times, what do you start doing? I started repeating, not even realizing what I was doing. I just started repeating the sentences and the phrases, and they were watching me. I didn't realize this. One day, Dad has a meeting, and he says, "Come up here, son." And he says, "I'm going to ask you some questions, and you just answer them, okay?" I said, "Sure." Didn't know what was going on, right? He said, "You like Zig Ziglar?" I said, "Oh, Dad, I think he's great." He said, well, he had these questions planned out, being the dad, wanting to help his son out. Right. He said, what do you think Zig has to say about this? And I would just tear into this little Zig talk. Then when I wound down, he would say, wow, well, what does he have to say about this? And I all thought I'd go again. And people in the meeting were just, they'd never seen a 5-year-old kid be so excited about something. So it wasn't long, but because of that, people started bringing their kids to the meeting so they could see me, and it just became this big deal. But because of Zig and everything that Dad learned, they ended up actually building the biggest team in the Southeast.
Wow.
And Zig flew over from Dallas to train Dad's downline for special events. And I got to meet Zig when I was 5 years old.
That is so awesome.
Yeah, man. I'm still trying to find it. My mother had this photo before she passed away. And it's Zig Ziglar. He's on one knee. He's kneeling down, and he's kind of got his head cocked a little bit, and he's got his hand stuck out to me. And I'm standing there, 5 years old, shaking his hand. And my mom captured that. I got to find that picture. My gosh.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an old black and white photo.
So some people learn nursery rhymes.
I learned Ziglar rhymes.
I hear you. I hear you. So continue, please. I'm always fascinated. I haven't heard all of this story, so this is new for me too.
Okay. Yeah. So that went on and on. Dad did very well with that. And when you're 5 years old and you get exposed to people when it started out, there was nobody had done anything. But as the meetings rolled along, more and more people would show up that had joined the company, and had gotten results with the Mark II vapor injector and had joined the business under Dad and started making money on their own, changing their lives. And when you're a little kid and you're in the back of the room and you see grown men crying because this opportunity saved them. There were people that were losing their houses. They couldn't afford to feed their families, just like it is today. But this business model saved them. And it was just unbelievable to watch all this kind of stuff. I mean, as a 5-year-old kid, I got all of Zig's philosophies poured into me when I was 5. So that is a blessing beyond words. And do you want me to go into what happened after that?
Yeah. You there's no one that knows this story better than you.
Well, I didn't know how specific you wanted me to get, but
I think telling your part of the history first, and then why this became. I think people right now could go, well, listen, there's little kids out there that probably met Jimmy Johnson or Dale Earnhardt, when they were young at 5, and we see these videos all the time during Christmas where. A football player or a baseball player goes by and sees a 5-year-old and throws them a football. And then the next thing you see that person's like, throwing a touchdown pass or catching a, I really wanted you to talk about how this was sort of brought into you And,
Sure.
and now people probably understand who in the hell in their right mind would collect network marketing memorabilia. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I wanted people to hear that part of your story. So please continue.
Well, as to why I would do it, this is my story.
Right.
Okay, this is my story. So after all this amazing stuff happened with Automotive Performance, it went on and went on. And that happened from when I was about 5 to when I was about 12. And when I was 14 years old, something happened to me that jerked a 14-year-old kid every which way but loose. And on July the 15th, 1978, a man named Jim Rohn came into my life. This is one of the funniest stories. And when I told Jim this, he got the biggest kick out of it. But my dad was looking for a new house. It's actually the house that I'm living in now. Because when he passed away, he was a master carpenter as well, and I couldn't stand the thought of strangers living here. So I look around and I see all his work every day, Plus, we went to this house, and we went to this realtor. My high school friend of mine's dad was a realtor, so we went there. And Dad and this realtor were talking, and I was sitting there getting bored. As kids do. And I'm looking around trying to find something to do, and I see a bookshelf over in the corner. So I thought, well, I'll go find something to read, right? So I go over there, and I'm looking at this bookshelf, and I'm going through the titles, looking at the titles, and there's this blue case up on the top that as I'm moving the titles, it started sliding forward. Well, I would push it back and, hit some more titles, it would slide forward again. Well, finally, I must have slipped the title too far, and it almost fell out. And it scared me, and I pushed it back really, really hard, which it bounced off the back of the case and hit me right square in the forehead. And when it did, it popped open, and all these cassette tapes went everywhere. And I thought, oh my gosh, I broke this guy's stuff. So I'm checking the case, it's fine. I'm checking each of the cassettes for damage, they're fine. But I started looking at the titles: personal development, success in sales, communications. And I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. So about that time, Dad called for me because they were done. And I put everything back in the cases, nice and neat. And I walked over to the guy. Gosh, I wish I could remember his name. But I said, look, I told him what happened. They had heard the noise, And I told him, I said, I knocked this off the shelf. I checked them. Everything's fine. I said, but I'm curious about this stuff. Do you mind if I borrow these? And he said, really? I said, yeah. He said, how old are you? I said, 14. Why? He said, sure. This was on a Saturday morning. He said, sure, you can borrow them, but have them back by Monday. I said, okay. So we went home, and I locked myself in my room and listened to those tapes all weekend long. I listened to the entire thing 3 or 4 times and was just absolutely blown away by what I heard. I mean, as you know, nobody can communicate like Jim Rohn does.
Nobody.
Monday morning rolls around, and I tell my dad, I've got a problem. He said, what's your problem? I said, I don't want to give these tapes back. He said, well, you told the guy you'd have them back Monday morning. You need to deal with it. I'm not going to intercede for you. You can handle it. So I called him up and I said, look, I really want to keep these tapes. I said, I will wash your dishes. I'll mow your yard. I'll take out the trash. I'll wash your car. I'll do whatever I have to do to earn these tapes from you. And there was a dead silence. And I thought he had hung up on me. But he said, are you serious right now? I said, absolutely. He said, you listened to the tapes? I said, yeah, I did. And I loved them. I said, I want to listen to them again, which is why I don't want to give them back. He said, you know what, kid? If you want them that bad, just keep them. Well, I did keep them, and I still got them. They're right here behind me in this case. If you'll look right there, that's the case that's opened up.
Wow.
And you can't see it, but above my thumb, when I told Jim the story, above that right there, he signed them for me. And it says, Ron, you are the best, Jim Rohn. And they have a place of honor in this museum. And so, yeah, he came into my life and turned me every which way but loose. Later, I was to find out that he and Zig Ziglar were not only good friends, but they had worked together in the network marketing business with the same company, being trained by the same people. So when Jim Rohn in these tapes started talking about his mentor, Earl Schoaf, I was so blown away by what Jim had to say. I said, gosh, I got to find Earl. I said, if I can find him, it'll help me understand Jim's work a little better, and the roots of everything. So I didn't know that he had passed away in 1965 at this point. So the search for Earl Schoaf is what really started all this. And I started correspondence and phone calls and everything I could, because this was late 70s. Information wasn't as available then as it is now. You couldn't just go on the internet and find something.
Right.
So over me connecting with people who would tell me a little bit of the story and say, hey, who would know more about this? Let me give you so-and-so's number. And they would give me the number, and they would say, well, when you find out all this, let me know, because you've got me curious now and I want to know all this stuff. So, and that's the way it
went. Wait a minute. Doesn't that sound like networking?
Does. But yeah, it just went from one person to the next person to the next person who would have a little piece of the puzzle. They would give me this piece and somebody else would give me this piece. And it started making this big picture. Right. And along the way, people would say, hey, you know what? I've got some stuff that I had when I was in so-and-so company, and I don't know what I want to do with it. Do you want it? I'm like, heck yeah. So It started coming in. Some of this stuff behind me is from my own forents into network marketing, but most of the historical stuff I got from people who were actually there, who were behind the stories, and shared all that stuff with me to help me paint this big picture. So
priceless.
Yeah. I mean,
some of the stuff that you showed me, and we had a couple more people that actually donated, Bill Shoemaker and also Jerome. So we got another $10 that came in.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much. Ron, I didn't even ask you, is the museum a 501c3?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the plan. The plan. But we really need to get everything out of here and into a public building where people can actually come and see it. And I've got room to spread out. I got stuff stacked up. It looks like a bomb went off in here. It looks nice and neat behind me, but I've got boxes every daggum where, and I just don't have the room.
Right.
And I mean, I can't wait to see all this stuff out in one big space. Are you kidding me? I'll be like a kid on Christmas morning. I mean, it's just, yeah, but that's the plan.
Why don't you tell everyone, right here, if you want to, really quickly, just share with everyone where they can go look at some of the stuff. I know that right now I'm one of the biggest people that has been pushing Ron for years. He keeps telling me about these, look at this album or look at this, green, LP by people that I've never heard for. And so, Ron is slowly turning this stuff into MP3s. He then, does good stories about them and then puts it up on his YouTube channel. So Ron, share with everyone really quickly where they can check out this info.
Okay. The best place to go to is networkmarketinghistory.com. That's going to be, there's pictures of the museum there, the story, what we're trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish, contact information. If you have a lead, if you know anybody, because a lot of this stuff came because nobody knew what to do with it. And had I not taken it, it would have ended up in a landfill somewhere. And I've got one of a kind items that, it's unbelievable the stuff that I've got. I've got Jim Rohn's personal. Back in the day, they had a what's called a Duquesne record projector. And you would carry this case around. And when you got to somebody's house to give your business presentation, you would open this thing up and the lid popped up and it was like a little movie screen. You would stick this record on there, load this film into this canister thing, and play the record. That's how you gave a presentation. You didn't do it. The record player did it. And every time the record would go, boop, you would advance one frame. Then they would talk some more and boop, you'd advance the frame. I've got the one that he personally carried door to door to build his business with.
Golly.
How in the world is
this is before slide projectors.
Yes.
Or film, film on a roller. We got two more. Jody Foster just donated $20, and Ola from Sweden
thank you so much.
Said $50. These guys these guys are trying to bankrupt me, you know. It's like, okay, so
what we were
So
talking
now-
about, if that were to get lost, you know, the way things happen, that personally couldn't have got lost. But I've got things that just serendipity, because of what I'm doing, is so different than anybody else on the planet. I'm trying to get the word out so people have, before they throw something away, they're like, hey, wait a minute, there's this guy in Atlanta, Georgia that says he can use this stuff and maybe somebody would want to see it. They contact me, we get it, it becomes part of the museum. And yeah, that's my passion. It's my magnificent obsession.
That, I mean, you can see it in your heart. You can see it in your passion. It's like, for those of you too that see how ambitious and how passionate Ron is about this, don't try to recruit him into a network marketing company because it doesn't work. It doesn't work. This is his passion. I've done everything I can to get Ron to build with me, and he wants to. It's just not his passion. It's not his calling. So it'd be like you trying to start a new church with a person that's already got a mission and a ministry. So that's why I love having Ron on here.
That's a great way to put it. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So and now he's got faith to believe that this will work and he can share it with other people. So here's a quick question for you, Ron.
Sure.
Before I ask a question, do you have any other part of your story that you think you would like to share before I take you down a different road?
Yeah, it's interesting how all this stuff ties together in the end. At the time, you're just living it because, again, like I said, the information wasn't available now as it was then. But May the 1st, 1981, I was 17 years old, and I was, because of my car craziness, whatever you want to call it, I was working at a gas station. You know, I was pumping gas, doing oil changes and all that kind of stuff. And one day, this lady comes up in a station wagon from Texas and talks to the owner, Tony Little, and says, do you mind if I go over here in the corner of the lot? It was near Cumberland Mall. If you're ever in the Atlanta area, it's right there on the corner of Highway 41 where Cumberland Mall is. There was a station there called Cumberland Chevron was the name of it. And she set up in the corner and opened the tailgate up and was selling these canisters out of the back of her car. So lunchtime rolls around and I see these people coming and going, and I'm like, what in the world is all this about? So I go over there and she shows me this canister of vanilla shake mix and these multivitamins and all this other kind of stuff. And I'd never really thought about that before. The only thing I knew about business was, the Mark II vapor injector. That's all I've known about. And she told me about the company. It was this new company out of California. Had been in business a little over a year. The owner was 24 years old or 25 years old. And his mission was to change the nutrition habits of people around the world. And the company was called Herbalife. And I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. So she sold me a can of shake mix and some vitamins. And as I was leaving, she said, are you making enough money here? I said, no, why do you ask? And she said, well, this was on a Friday. May 1st was on a Friday. And she said, tomorrow you can come to this meeting and you'll learn more about how to take your products, and you'll meet other people who have already been taking them and they're getting the results. And if you're interested, there's a business opportunity attached to this, like what I'm doing, if it's something you want to do. She was very low pressure.
Yeah.
I said, sure. And she said, look, I'm not sure I can make it, but I want to be able to keep up with you. Fill out this distributor application.
Holy, before she sent you to the meeting. Brilliant.
Yeah, she would. And it turns out she didn't make it to the meeting, but she had me locked in. See, she said, fill out this application. So I've got your contact info, right? And so I filled it out and everything. And she said, now we got a distributor kit here that's got more information about the business. I want you to read up on everything. And that way, if you have any questions tomorrow, you can ask them. And I'm just she had me so mesmerized, I'm just handing the money over. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is good. And then I got thinking about my dad and what he did, I'm like, this is shape mix. Surely it isn't the same thing. And I get to Belmont Hill Shopping Center on the morning of May the 2nd, Saturday, and listen to this presentation of the business. And sure enough, I didn't know it was called network marketing. I wasn't even sure what they called it in 1968. It's been called chain marketing or whatever they came up with it. But multi-level marketing didn't exist back then. That name didn't exist.
Isn't that interesting? You're a historian.
Yep.
And people add names to something where back then it was like, hey, are you interested in making money?
Yeah.
And then other people added all these names to it.
Why do you have to call it anything? Just go and do the work, I mean, hey. But yeah, so I get there and I listen, and sure enough, people come up who have lost weight and talk about how great they feel. And I'm like, wow, this is really sounding good, And then they get up about the business opportunity and talking about people who are making money. And they were just getting Atlanta really going at that time, in the Atlanta area. I was in Smyrna, Georgia, which is probably 15, 20 miles from where I am now in Lithia Springs. But they were just getting started. And so we need people to get things going. And I really, really loved what I heard there. But something happened at that meeting that 3 things have happened in my life. Is my dad starting the business when I was 5 and me learning about Zig Ziglar and meeting him and all that getting poured into me. July 15th, 1978, when I first heard Jim Rohn's voice, and that got poured into me. At this meeting on May the 2nd, 1981, I was handed a cassette tape. Okay. Now, the company had put out this cassette tape, but there was such a demand for it that they couldn't keep, what I heard is they couldn't keep up with it. So people were getting like Memorex tapes and making copies.
Hell yeah.
And what I got was a Memorex copy. And they said, this is something the company just came, it was 2 cassettes. This is something the company just came out with called Millionaire Training. And I love that name. I'm like, really? Wow, this is cool. That was the first time I heard the name Larry Thompson.
Wow.
So, yeah, I took that home, and just like Zig and Jim had hit me before, Larry Thompson with Millionaire Training. And that thing had only been recorded like 6 weeks before I got to it. So it was crazy. And they had already made the cassettes and got them out into the field, but they couldn't get them out fast enough because people were eating these things up.
Yeah. And so you guys understand that where my story is, Larry Thompson had a partner named Larry Huff.
Yep.
And Larry Thompson and Larry Huff taught 2 guys, young guys, Jeff Roberti and a guy named Bill Gould that taught me.
Yep. Larry Huff was actually Larry Thompson's upline in the first company he ever joined.
Wow.
So, yeah.
And I know Anthony's on here. So Larry Huff used to be a drag racer.
He was. Soapy Sales was the name of his drag, funny car.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That was Larry.
So crazy. So crazy. So, for as a historian now, and again,
Yes.
Another person donated, Faith. Thank you so much. And again, I'm matching dollar for dollar. So you guys are awesome. Make sure you donate. This will go to, I promise you, Ron's not going to spend the money on his wife. He's going to buy some more. Ron's constantly got some people that not only are historians, but they reach out to him. And I would say that this might be the only negative thing I could say about Ron Henley, but his heart's too big. And so people reach out to him and say, well, I got this thing. And Ron's the kind of guy that will go, great, I'll buy it from you and I'll pay for shipping. And
I wanted to get away.
He doesn't want stuff to get away. So
I've seen a lot of stuff over the decades. So if I see something that I don't have that's in really, really good condition, hey, jump on it,
Yeah, it's priceless. Again, it's
absolutely.
Priceless. So the first question that I have for you is when you go back and look at this industry, because you and I've had these conversations, how far back Have you ever like pinned a date of, because I want you to share the name, but can you go back to who you would believe would be the father of actually getting people to understand, if they took the time to learn or put somebody else in front of the teacher, that they could also get compensated by them selling product?
Yes, very much so. To get up to him, we need to go back to where this thing always started. Now, you and I joke around a lot that there are people out there that think network marketing's been around 5 years or so. Well, depending on which date I'm about to give you, it started 89 years ago or 84 years ago, depending on which way you want to look at it. But there was a man named Carl Renborg out in California who started a company called California Vitamins.
Okay.
The network marketing business model was born from nutritional supplements. That was its genesis. And he struggled for 5 years and finally got some partners who believed in what he was doing. He renamed the company Nutrilite in 1939. And it was at that point when trying to figure out a way to service his ever-growing customer base, it was too much for one person. So he went to his distributor base and said, look, if you will help me service this area, Joe, if you'll help me service this area, I will give you the product at a discount. And then when you sell it for what you would normally pay me for it, you will make a profit to help me service people. Jane, if you will take care of this area, I'll do the same for you. Tom, Judy, and he got this group going, just a very loose framework. Built, now this is key. This business model was created out of a necessity for customer service, for better customer service. That's what it was. As one person, you can only do so much.
Right.
So he needed help. Thank goodness he was wise enough to see that. So he started recruiting people in, and the business grew and grew. In 1945, two men, one named Lee Meidinger and Dr. William Castleberry, had been Nutrilite distributors, and they had an idea of how to take it to the next level. And they went to Carl Renborg, and Renborg said, I like it. How about if I make you guys the master distributors for Nutrilite? And everything will come in under you guys. So they signed that deal in September 1945. They became the master distributors. And Meidinger came from a sales background, and Castleberry was a psychologist. So there they had the beginnings of what was sales and training, mindset, all that kind of stuff. They still were struggling with it, though.
Sure.
In 1948, that's when the wheels come off of this thing, because there was a man named Rich Schnackenberg. Now, a lot of people have never heard that name, but he is the person that every single legend and icon can be traced directly back to. I'm talking, you give me anybody, I'll trace him back to Rich Schnackenberg. But 48, Rich was working, he had a laundromat in Gate City, California. A Nutrilite salesman came by and told him the food supplement story. And Rich had been a student for years of Orson Swett Marden and Charles Haanel and Napoleon Hill and all these guys. So he was very success focused about mindset. So when he saw this, he's like, well, this is great. So he signed up right away and went to work. And he created the whole concept of personal development with a pay plan. That was Rich's baby. He did all that stuff. He got people trained. He was a year into his distributorship when two people whose names you may recognize joined Nutrilite in his downline. Those two guys are named Rich DeVos and Jay Van Andel, the founders of Amway. Amway would happen for another 10 years, but in 1949, they joined. Their Jay Van Andel's cousin name was Neil Maskant, and he had joined Nutrilite. He knew that Rich and Jay were looking for, they had tried several different entrepreneurial visits at this time. And he went to them and said, look, here's the deal. Come to a meeting, figure it out. So they excited about it. They signed up, right? Now, this cracks me up, but guys, listen to this. When you think of Rich DeVos and Jay Van Andel, you don't think quitters.
No.
You don't think strugglers. You don't think people who, just gave up, but they did. They sold 1 unit of NutraBio in 2 weeks and they quit. They quit looking for greener pastures like so many people do. Neil, thank goodness, went to them and said, look, guys, you're not getting it. There's a big rally in Chicago. I'll drive. You guys come with me. We'll go. And at that rally, they heard and met Rich Snackenberg for the first time. They heard Carl Renborg. They heard Lee Meitinger and William Castleberry. They heard all these guys, and they got the big picture. And, the rest is history, to coin a phrase.
The rest is history.
Yeah. 10 years later, those guys, for the same reason that Rich Snackenberg left, I don't know how far down this thing you want to go, but Rich left because Castleberry and Meitinger were doing some things he didn't think was proper. And they were starting to get in trouble with the government. And he warned them and said, look, if you go down this path, it's not going to be good. And they wouldn't listen. He actually went to Carl Renborg and tried to buy controlling interest in Nutrilite.
Wow.
Take it over. Carl wouldn't sell it. So he didn't know what to do. So he stopped actively building. He supported whoever was already in his downline, but he stopped actively building. And Dr. J.B. Jones, who was a direct student of Napoleon Hill's, had been watching Rich and watching this whole Nutrilite thing. And he had started a company called Abundavita, Abundant Vitamins, Abundavita. Again, personal development with a pay plan concept. He knew Rich was unhappy, recruited Rich to come be the vice president of training for his company, Abundavita. Rich joined in early 50s. Just to give you an idea of the lineage here, it's just where it really starts.
Please.
Yeah. In Abundavita, Rich and Dr. Jones were in Long Beach, California. Jones would go around the town giving lectures on Napoleon Hill's laws of success. After, he would say, look, if you liked what I had to say, stick around. I'm going to show you how to put it to work. Then he would hold an Abundavita opportunity meeting. So they did this in Long Beach, and a man named Marvin Wendt had become a distributor, and he was looking for other people. He believed in the product. He had a next door neighbor that was working as a pants presser at Desmond's department store in Long Beach, making about $100 a week. His name was Earl Schoaf.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Rich told me that Earl Marvin would call and say, are you coming to the meeting tonight? And Earl would say, no, we got this to do. We got that to do. Well, this went on for several weeks. Finally, Earl forgot to call him and tell him not to come. So he shows up at the door ready to go. And Earl says, well, look, we'll go and he'll stop bugging us, right? We'll just go and get it over with. So they go. And of course, he's blown away by the laws of success. He's blown away by Rich. He's blown away by the product. And he signs right there on the spot. Wow. So it didn't take him long. Him and Rich became best friends. Rich told me that he was closer to Earl than he was his own brothers.
Wow.
And through Rich's mentorship, Rich Snackenberg's mentorship, Earl rose to vice president of sales in that company in less than a year and a half, making about $25,000 a month. And now this is 1953 money.
Holy cow.
Yeah, this was in 1953. So I don't know what that would be, but at least be 10 times that. Okay. And so this happened. And then Earl and Rich, by this time, for reasons I won't get into, Dr. Jones took a powder and decided to stay back in corporate headquarters and send his boys out to do all the work. So Earl and Rich toured the country. They ended up in a place called Pensacola, Florida in November of 1955, where a Sears Human Resources clerk who had been embarrassed because he couldn't afford $2 for a box of Girl Scout cookies went to a meeting and heard the Abundavita story and the laws of success. His name was Jim Rohn. He was 25 years old. And anybody who knows anything about Jim Rohn knows the Girl Scout cookies story. This had just happened, and he was looking for opportunity. And a guy that he used to work with at Sears His name was Jackson Baird, B-A-I-R-D. They called him Jack. Jack Baird came around and was actually shopping for like 5 brand new suits when Jim walked by and said, "Hey, Jack, what are you up to?" And of course, Jack told him. He said, "What, is that why you're getting all these suits?" He said, "Yeah, man." He said, I got to have some clothes, you know." So this is a really good business. And so Jim said, "Well, I want to know more about it." So he drove Jim to the meeting. And of course, you know, Jim signed up, and he borrowed $200 from his parents to buy his distributor kit and to enough inventory to get started. And again, the rest is history with him, but there's more to the history. Let's see, which way do you want me to go now?
Hey, I'm if people need to go, they can watch. They can watch the replay.
Okay.
We did have another person, Lee, that sent $9.99, and so Wanda, she became an inner circle member. So man,
Thank
it's
you so much.
very, very, very cool. So please keep going. You're enjoying this. I'm enjoying this.
So here's where it really starts getting interesting. Abundant Vita is doing good. Okay, it's doing good. Dr. Jones decides to take a vacation. He wants to take his yacht and sail around the world for a year. He said, "Rich and Earl, you're in charge of the company. Okay, you take care of it, and if you get sales up to $1 million a month, I will give you preferred stock options. I'll give you pay increases." He made this whole package deal with them. Of course, this sounded really, really good to them, so they went to work.
Yeah.
Jones takes off on his trip. Earl and Rich just go nuts building this thing. A year later, they come back. Jones comes back. So now here's the thing that gets me. He fully expected the company to be in shambles.
Sure.
He expected to come back to Earl and Rich having fumbled everything so bad that he would ride in like the white shining knight and save everything and everybody. But what he wasn't counting on was the company exploded to 5 times what it was when he left. So when he got back, his ego could not take it. It couldn't take it. So he reneged on the deal that he made him, and he gave him a pay decrease and capped it and said, "You will never, no matter how much work you do, you will never earn any more than this." Well, what would you do?
Yeah.
Rich quit. He was at the corporate office when Jones got back. He quit on the spot. He tells Harry Ebert. Harry Ebert is another friend of theirs who was responsible for putting together all the promotional films and all the pamphlets and the sales kits and all that stuff. And matter of fact, if you go on my YouTube channel, I've got 2 films that he made in 1957 that are still up there. But Rich told Harry, "You know, I quit. I'm done." Harry calls Earl, who he was out in the Midwest giving classes and everything. As soon as he found out what had happened, he quits on the spot, catches a train back to Los Angeles. So the men are sitting around. This is June of 1957 when this happens.
Wow.
They're trying to figure out what to do, you know. And again, Rich tells Earl, "Look, we need to buy in the Nutrilite. We need to pool our money, and if Renborg will sell it, get controlling interest in the Nutrilite, because they've got, you know, if it's done right, they, you know." And they thought, and again, Renborg wouldn't sell it. So they said, "Well, plan B is we need to start our own company, a company that treats people right." And they were sitting there trying to figure out what it was. And it was actually Earl's wife, Flossie, who came up with the name NutriBio, better nutrition through biochemistry. So you take Nutra-Bio, and that became the name of the company.
Wow.
Well, now, here's the thing. Network marketing was created by some very, very humble people. And for everything that Jim has done in his life, I've said it before and I'll say it again, he was the most humble man I ever met in my life. Rich was the same. Rich was very humble. Okay, he had done so much up to that point, but he was
these guys, without a shadow of a doubt, believed in their hearts of hearts that this was the thing that would allow people an even playing field.
Yes.
Regardless of your education or lack thereof,
yes.
Regardless of your race and how you were raised, they wanted this to be something that they could teach somebody and inspire them to go out and make a difference for them and their family and,
Yeah.
and not have a pot to piss in.
Right. Exactly right. So they, if you're getting ready to start an enterprise, and it's pretty important who the leadership's going to be, right?
Yep.
Well, Rich, even though he had taught Earl, said, it doesn't matter to me who does what. I just want to help. I just want to be a part of it. So the two men flipped the dadgum quarter. They flipped a quarter in Rich's living room. Earl called heads and won the toss. So Earl became president of NutraBio. Rich became executive vice president. Harry became vice president of training. So that all happened in Rich's living room in July of 1957, and NutraBio was born. Now, Jones had a very bad ego problem. Okay, there's so many great examples. That's why that's why I'm so passionate about this, guys. We learn from our past. We learn what happened so we don't make the same mistakes again.
Right.
Jones, because of the success that Rich and Earl had gotten for him, became big-headed and just ego out of control. And it was just too much for everybody in the company. So by the time Earl and Rich started NutraBio, everybody was looking for another way to another place to go.
Right.
So, like 3/4 of the Abundivited sales force left and joined NutraBio. But Rich and Earl never one time asked anybody to leave. They never said, this company sucks, come over here.
Right.
They never said that. And they were very proud about that. Rich told me that every time he would tell me that story, he would, you could see the pride. He said, we never asked them. They came of their own accord. And he was very proud of that. And of course, Jim Rohn was one of those that left and joined NutraBio.
Sure.
Under the direct mentorship of Earl and Rich, Jim he flourished. He absolutely flourished. He was, he started when he was 25, 1957. He would have been 27 years old. By the time he was 29, he was making $35,000 a month.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is back in, 1959 money. But, from a farm boy from Idaho, that's big bucks.
Yeah. To put that into equation really quick, 25 grand a month in 1959 is $263,000 a month today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, well.
Yeah. So do you think what they had to teach Jim had any value?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So he's making all this money, and I got tickled. Jim was telling the story just really, really quick. I'll tell you this. He was embarrassed to tell his parents how well he was doing. See,
I've heard this story many times.
Yeah, his father was an evangelical preacher and started a church in Caldwell, Idaho, where they were from, called Calvary Temple. And it's still there today. And they were, he was so afraid that he was going to offend them or that they were going to be mad that he was making so much money. So he put it off, telling them how's everything going? Yeah, it's going okay. Finally we told them what was going on. And going after they picked their jaws up off the floor, they were so happy for him. And it's just hilarious. Again, it's got to do with the humility. It's crazy.
Totally.
Yeah, but that Jim did so well that NutraBio was expanding into Canada, and they needed an executive team for Canada. Now, Rich wanted Jim to be the president of NutraBio Canada. That was the plan that Rich wanted and that Earl wanted. But there was this man named Charles Young. They called him Chuck Young. He was a roller skate arena owner who had become a NutraBio distributor. And he was one of these slimy guys. Yeah. Unscrupulous guys that would say whatever needed to be said to get the job done, true or not or whatever. And he had schmoozed the other people of the NutraBio board, and Earl and Rich were outvoted by the board on who to make president. They made Chuck Young the president of NutraBio Canada. And they made Jim Rohn vice president, executive vice president. And so that, anyway, I've got feelings about that, but that's history and you can't change it.
Right.
But so, of course, that all exploded. And I've mentioned this before, but because of what happened in NutraBio Canada, I've been trying to figure out a way to tell the story in a documentary form. You see them on Discovery Channel, all this kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
5-part documentaries to tell the story. And I finally figured out a story that's the anchor point to where you can get into the story and then tell this part about Jim and then tell this part about Earl and tell this part and then come back to the main story. So I'm working on getting that screenplay treatment, whatever. I'm writing all this stuff down, working with some people. So keep your fingers crossed. We're going to get a documentary made about all this kind.
No doubt.
So yeah. So if I ever post on my Facebook wall, who should play Jim Rohn, I want you to give me some good suggestions. So Jim does very well. Okay. This is the point where he talks about being a multimillionaire. He was worth $2.3 million at this point in 1962. And then because of, I'm not going to get into details, but because of some really shady stuff, in my opinion, the government illegally shut down NutraBio. They were getting too big. See, they were a private company and they decided to go public.
Right.
And when you go public, you have an IPO. Or is that initial public offering? Yeah. You have an IPO. And when you do that, you have to reveal your numbers.
Right.
And NutraBio was freaking killing it. And when their public numbers got known, the medical, the medicine, the nutraceuticals, all these people set up a plan to get rid of them.
Yeah, every person that found out that they didn't have their hands in the cookie jar.
Exactly right. Exactly. They were taking away too much business. People weren't going to the doctor as much. People didn't need as many drugs. So, they decided to get rid of them. And this isn't the place for it, but I could tell you some stories that would raise the hair on the back of your neck. It's just crazy the lengths they went to, but they shut them down and Jim had to find something to do. Well, it's 1963 and Jim's sitting around one day looking at all his notebooks and journals, learning, going through all this stuff that Earl had taught him and Richie taught him. And he thought to himself, maybe this would be valuable for other people. Well, about the time he had that thought, a friend of his who belonged to a Rotary Club in Beverly Hills contacted him and said, "Hey, you've got a really good story. Come and speak at our Rotary Club meeting." And that's the first time that Jim had ever spoke outside of the company and the network marketing, his personal team. And that speech went over so well, because can you imagine? I mean, even Jim Rohn on his worst day is better than most people on their best day, But that speech went over so well, they called it Farm Boy from Idaho Makes It to Beverly Hills. That was the name of his speech. And it went over so well that word started getting out. More and more people started to ask him to give seminars. And he gave his first self-promoted seminar at the Beverly Hills Hotel in 1963. And that started his speaking career. And he did that. He started a company called Adventures in Achievement, where he gave speeches and things. And when NutraBio folded, he had been in that company with Zig Ziglar. That's the company where Jim and Zig Ziglar first met. He was in that company with a man named William E. Bailey, Bill Bailey, William Penpatrick, and Robert Depew, had all been in NutraBio together. Well, when everything went their own separate ways, William Penpatrick in 1967 started Holiday Magic Cosmetics, another huge company. Bill Bailey started Best Line Products, which sold a biodegradable soap called Ziff that I still use to this day. It's good stuff. And and speaking of Holiday Magic, I've got something here I want to show you. This is a Holiday Magic gift set that I just got in not too long ago. When I said something's in mint condition, I want to jump on it.
Yeah.
Check this out. This is the case. This is a travel case that the men would take with them. And inside the travel case, aftershave and cologne. Never been used. It's in mint condition. I mean, look at that.
Oh my God. It looks like brand new.
Oh, and it smells incredible. No wonder they sold a bunch of this stuff. But yeah, this is the kind of stuff that I get for the museum guys. So everybody can see this, and it helps tell the story of where we came from, so we know where we're going.
Right.
But William Penpatrick started Holiday Magic. Bill Bailey and Bobby DePew went with him in that company. Bill Bailey was actually the first president of Holiday Magic. Bill and Penpatrick had a falling out. So Bill Bailey started Best Line Products. Jim joined Best Line Products in 1968. At the same, Larry Huff had invited Jim to come to this meeting. Larry Huff had sponsored somebody named Mike. I can't think of Mike's last name. Mike, who Larry sponsored Mike, and Mike called his buddy Larry Thompson, who was a long-haired hippie construction worker. And Larry later found out that he was Mike's very last call. He had completely struck out. Nobody else is going to come to the meeting. So Mike called Larry to try to save face to get somebody to the meeting.
Right.
You got Jim rolling in that meeting. You got Larry Thompson rolling in that meeting, and they both joined Best Line Products the same night. So, and then again, Jim starts building a team again and ends up becoming a corporate trainer for Best Line Products. Larry joins under the mentorship of Bobby DePew, and Jim Rohn becomes a mega superstar. I mean, if you don't know the name Larry Thompson, you've had your name under a rock. So you had yourself under a rock. So. But yeah, so that all happened in 1968. This went on to about 1973 when Bill Bailey decided to retire. He had a mild heart attack and decided to just step back. And Jim left the company to really focus on his speaking engagements. Larry left Best Line and eventually ended up with another company that Larry Huff had started called Golden Youth. Now, this stuff is running kind of side by side, so try to stay with me. You got Larry Thompson leaving Best Line, going to Golden Youth. You've got Jim Rohn leaving Best Line, focusing on his speaking career. So Larry Huff starts this company called Golden Youth. They sell this exercise equipment called Slim Jim, is what they called it. And it was it was being promoted by this actress, this very famous actress. Her name will come to me in a moment, so stay with me. And so Larry goes to this meeting. He's burned out, but he goes because Larry Huff tells him to go check it out.
Right.
Somebody else who had first joined a company called Slender Now was he was a suit salesman and making about $1,100 a month. He had joined this company called Slender Now and loved what the company did. He loved what he was doing, but Slender Now went out of business. So he's looking for something else to do. So this person shows up at the same meeting as Larry Thompson does. His name is Mark Hughes. So Larry Thompson and Mark Hughes joined Golden Youth at the same meeting the same night. Just like Jim Rohn and Larry had joined Best Line a few years before. So now you got Mark and Larry where they first meet. Golden Youth does good for about a year or so. And for whatever reason, Larry Thompson told me they never got a straight answer as to why they padlocked the doors. So Larry had said, he said, I've had enough. And he left California and went back to Dallas, Texas. He went back to his family. He said, I've had it. Mark had been doing so well. Larry had actually worked himself up, and I think to vice president of sales or vice president of training or something for that company. And Mark had become like one of maybe the top 3 distributors of Slender Now. So they had a very good working relationship. So when they padlocked the door, now this is a story that'll blow your mind. When you hear the story of how Herbalife started, you hear about how Mark had to borrow money to get the company going.
Right.
And then you think, well, if he had been 2 other companies and had done so well and had made so much money, why did he have to borrow money? Here's why. He shows up one Saturday morning at the Golden Youth warehouse. He had gone around getting orders from his distributors, from customers, and he placed a $29,000 order. Okay. He got the cashier's check. made out to Golden Youth. He went in, he said, here's my order, here's my cashier's check. They said, come back this afternoon, it'll be ready for you. He said, okay. So he goes and does what he does for a few hours. He comes back later, the doors are padlocked. Everybody's gone. And they kept his money. That was all the money that he had in the world. So that experience just pushed him over the edge. He said, look, I'm going to do my own deal. And this ain't ever going to happen to anybody ever again if I've got a breath in my body. And when he told Larry Thompson he wanted to start a company, Larry thought he was out of his mind.
Yeah.
He said, you're nuts. You got no idea what this is going to. He said, you don't understand. I'm going to do it with or without you. So Mark tells his grandparents, and his grandfather actually pitches in $5,000, and he gets 4 other people to pitch in $5,000. So he's got $25,000 to start the company with. And Larry said, you're serious about this stuff. They've been talking on the phone, long distance was cheap back then. So he would call him from California to Dallas back and forth. And Larry would fly out every few weeks or so and help. They would meet at what was Mark's favorite? Monterey House. It was his favorite Mexican restaurant. They would sit there and flesh out a marketing plan, products, what the brochure should say, what the training thing should be. They worked on all this stuff, coming up with all these different names, and finally, Mark decided on Herbalife. Now, Mark's birthday is January the 1st, 1956. He had planned to open Herbalife on January 1st, 1980, on his birthday, on his 24th birthday. But something happened and it was delayed a month, and it actually opened February 1st, 1980. Larry said, I will help you, but please understand, I'm
not being a rep anymore because I'm just going to be a trainer.
I've had enough, So he's back in Texas, and this thing really gets going. He keeps calling Larry, hey man, the check is up to this, and this is happening, and this is happening. And Larry would come out and sit at an opportunity meeting and say, man, this thing's really starting to take off. So about 7 months into the thing, Mark says, look, I need you. This thing is going to work. Come out, be my vice president. And they came to a deal where Larry would officially join the company, but he didn't want to join as vice president right away. Larry had integrity. He understood people. He said, they're not going to accept me unless I build a team first.
Right.
So he got in there and started building a team. And toward the beginning, the exact dates, I think the end of 1980, beginning of 1981, he officially becomes part of the company, and Mark announces him as vice president of sales. And that's right. This was in January of 1981, because in March of 1981, about 6 weeks later, Larry does Millionaire Training. The Millionaire Training was the very first seminar training class that Larry had ever given for Herbalife. Now, we came this close to never being able to hear it, because Larry was just going to give the class to whoever came to the hotel, the Bonaventure Hotel. At the last minute, like a day or so before, Mark said, why don't we record this? Because Mark knew what was coming. He had heard all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
When he was in Slender Now, that's how he got to know Jim Rohn. He was in Slender Now. A man named Greg Greneau, who was a Slender Now rep, took Mark to his first Jim Rohn seminar in California. So all this stuff is starting to come together, right? So when he got into starting Herbalife or whatever, he wanted Jim Rohn to be a part of it. But Jim was doing other things and said, look, just like Larry had said, I will help unofficially.
Right.
Mark had been talking to him since Golden Youth had shut down, and he had started about his own company. And through the whole thing, Jim had been part of it, just like Larry had been. Larry officially became a part of it in January of 1981. It took Jim 5 more years to officially become a part of it. But Jim joined as executive international director in 1986. So, the bomb had hit Herbalife in 1985.
Right.
And their sales had gone from $512 million in 1984 to like less than 10% of that within just a few months.
Yep.
So they brought Jim in. Mark said, look, I'll stay back here and I'll handle all the legal stuff, and I'll worry about the company. you, Larry and Jim, you two go out and train the distributors and build the distributorship. And that's what happened. And the three of them turned the company back around. So,
and for those of you that don't know it, Herbalife not only was the fastest growing company, not only in the United States and the world, but there's the stories of Herbalife distributors had stickers on their bumpers, and it would say, if you're interested in Herbalife, honk your horn, and people are signing up people on the side of the road in LA.
That's right.
It started growing so fast. The sad thing about it is the FDA went after Mark Hughes, basically saying that you have to put your ingredients on the bottles, but they wanted Mark Hughes to put the percentage of each ingredient.
Right.
And so what he did is he said, listen, that's giving away my proprietary mixing and making of the product.
Exactly.
He fought the FDA, and Mark Hughes won.
That's right.
Won. But there was so much publicity. He won the battle and lost the war because the government was constantly on all these news shows going, they're going to take down this young guy trying to hit billionaire status that's doing an illegal pyramid scheme. And they were just so mad at him for doing it. And he won. He won and turned the company back around. Just incredible story.
Yeah, it's amazing. And Mark had the gumption. He had been fed up. He'd gotten around enough of these people. And of course, by the time this had happened, you have to understand that Jim Rohn had shared everything that he had been through with Abundavita, with NutraBio being shut down. The bottom line is, if you're making too much money, these idiots are going to come after you. Bottom line, they don't like that, because if you're making too much money, you've got to be doing something wrong, right?
Right.
No, they're ridiculous. But Mark learned all this stuff that had happened, and so he had all that. Plus, Larry Thompson had shared everything that had happened.
Right.
And he had all that in him. So when it came time for fight or flight, he decided to fight. He believed in what he was doing. He believed in the company, and he went to the mat. And I don't know if you've ever seen the broadcast of the trial. Have you seen it, Robert?
Yeah, I have.
Have you seen what he said to those people?
Yep.
Okay, there are senators up there that can click their fingers and you go to jail. Okay, that's how powerful they are. They were up there talking about how great the people who had testified before,
right,
and how you should believe every word they said. And Mark said, well, if they were so great, why were they so fat yesterday? And you talk about, man, I just like, woo.
When Amway went to court, and in my opinion, fought for the right for us to have the right for network marketing.
Yes.
But a lot of people don't realize how Amway has been able to also, like Mark Hughes, sort of tread. It's like these guys finally had the money and the gumption to go after the government. And so what I love about Amway's story is today, Amway's got like 14, if you heard the negative thing about lobbying the government, Amway has got like 15 or 20 congressmen and like 11 senators that are Amway reps. What Amway started doing is at their big conventions, they would have senators and congressmen speak at their events.
Yes. Check this out. There's another thing that really played in their favor when all this happened. That lawsuit started in 1975, by the way. Wow. So who became president that was from Michigan? Gerald Ford. So Gerald Ford went to bat for Amway.
Yeah.
And, they were from Michigan. And
in return, Rich not only was on the committee, but he also carried General President Ford's casket.
Yes.
And on top of that, he paid for the museum for President Ford in Ada, Michigan.
Yep. Yep. So, you've got to play. And Earl Schoaf, bless his heart, okay? Rich told me that Earl said you can't fight City Hall. When they started all this crap against NutraBio, they were saying in the papers that they had been arrested, that Rich and Earl and everybody had been arrested, the company had been closed down, all this crazy stuff, and it never happened.
Right.
These idiots just used the media like they're doing today, but I digress. They used the media to spread a false narrative.
Right.
And again, the only news that you got was pretty much in newspapers back then.
Yeah.
So if it was in print, it had to be true. And you keep hearing the same thing over and over. Even a lie starts becoming believable if you see it enough.
Right.
So that's what happened with NutraBio. Earl said, you can't fight City Hall. We can't fight them. Rich wanted to fight. Rich wanted to fight. And I'm here to tell you, if Rich had won that coin toss and had become president of NutraBio, NutraBio would still be around today. That company was so far ahead. Robert, they sold flying cars. Okay. This is how ahead of their time they were.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I could go into NutraBio and everything they had going. Bob Cummings, who was a huge TV and movie star back then. I'm sorry about that. Was part of NutraBio's board. He believed, he was a nutrition and a health and fitness freak, and he believed in NutraBio. They were doing so much. They were doing so good. They were getting so much attention. I read a thesis one time that somebody read, it's online, where they did this for their, what do you call it when you get is it a master's degree? I think you have to write this thesis to get your master's degree. And it was about nutrition companies and all this thing. And they said that NutraBio had become a national mania. I'll never forget those two words. It had become a national mania. Everybody wanted to do something with NutraBio. You were either taking the product, or you knew somebody that was taking the product, or you knew somebody that was in the company. They sold flying cars. They sold nutritional supplements. They were getting into all kinds of things, man. It was unbelievable what they were going to do. But Earl, being in the driver's seat as president, said, we're not going to fight them. So they shut the doors in 1963.
Wow.
Here's another little tidbit. Jim Rohn almost had his own network marketing company.
Really?
Yes. After NutraBio folded, Rich Snackenberg went to Earl and said, are you done? Are you done? He said, and Earl said, I'm done with nutritional supplements. He said, it's too much. It's just, I don't want to fight all these people. Earl was real amiable. He was very low key and very, but Rich was ready to fight. So he said, the heck with it. When we left Abundant Body, we started NutraBio. Now that NutraBio, since we got closed down, I'm not giving in. We're going to start another company. So they took NutraBio and Nutrilite and came up with BioLite. So Jim Rohn and Rich Snackenberg were going to start BioLite. So they pulled all their money into it and got millions of dollars of products ready to go. And make a long story short, government came to them and said, they're never going to let you get off the ground.
Wow.
And they could not even, they were forbidden from giving away the products that were in the warehouse. Never mind, they can't sell them. You can't even give them away.
Wow.
And they told me that they sat in a warehouse for over 10 years before they finally degraded to the point where they had to come in and do something, and they bulldozed the warehouse that everything was in.
Golly.
And, oh gosh, if I'd known that, I would have loved to have had some of that stuff for the museum.
Oh,
but,
man.
Yeah. So I mean, again,
what year did Rich and Jay from Amway buy Nutrilite?
1972, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I got to say this because bless Rich Snackenberg's heart. Again, very humble man, one of the happiest people I've ever met in my life. Very low key, but it pissed him off that Rich and Jay bought Nutrilite.
Yeah. Yeah.
I couldn't get it.
Yeah. After he tried over and over and over to get it, it's just well, man, Ron, I never get sick and tired of hearing this story and hearing this stuff. And so now
telling it.
Oh my God, you could go on and on. So for you guys, you got to plug into Ron. Ron, you know, what's your Facebook page? It's
Ron Henley Page, Facebook.com, Ron Henley Page.
okay, great. You guys make sure you reach out to him and make sure that you're friends of him. Follow and subscribe to his YouTube channel. You know, click on that little bell up there. So he's constantly, I mean, you guys are gonna watch Ron just consistently keep adding more and more stuff. And you know, Ron is the kind of guy that will give everything away. So I need you guys, when you see him, sometimes, you know, looking to raise money for the museum and to make sure that everyone enjoys this. You know, if you see him ever take like an old LP that, you know, that he might be charging a couple of dollars to listen to the MP3, don't be the kind of jerk out there that buys it and then copies it and gives it to your group. Make them go get it from Ron. You know, God darn it, you know, because Ron's heart's always going to be around that and that. So the only question I have for you, Ron, and then we'll let Craig see if there was some in here, is what is that when you're interviewed, what is a question that you always wished people would ask?
You know, I've pretty much talked about everything and covered. There's not much. You know, I really can't think of anything.
We did a good job. That was my
you
goal.
You did a good job. Yeah. I mean, yeah, people that ask me about this stuff. Now, I may hear some questions that are coming up that I wouldn't have thought of, but right off the top of my head, I can't think of anything. But before we get to that, I want to share a few quick things with people.
Sure.
To make these companies that I've talked about a little bit more real. You've heard that Abunda Vita was the company that Earl and Jim and Rich got started in together. Check this out. This is an original Abunda Vita bottle. It's in mint condition. And it's still got the tablets in it. See, guys, this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. The person that got me this was at an estate sale in Ohio. This bottle was in a shoebox in the top of this old couple's house that had passed away. They were going through it and we're just going to toss this, but they heard about the Network Marketing History Museum and knew enough about it to contact me. So I got this. I mean, God, people hate the smell of vitamins. Oh, this smells so good to me. They look like, I mean, look at this. This is the stuff that people actually took. They look like little green M&Ms. Yeah. Can you see that?
Yeah.
It's like little green M&Ms. But I mean, I just love it. But this is an abundant.
To all the people in the company at that time, it smelled like money.
But this is really cool too. This is something I've got in the museum. This is an original Nutrilite vitamin bottle from the late 1950s. Now I've already showed you the Holiday Magic set, but NutriBio sold protein mix. Yeah. They actually won awards for their packaging back in the day. You had this little thing that you unzipped and then you would open it up and you would scoop out your protein powder. It came in a 1 pound canister and a 3 pound canister. And I've got the 3 pound canister in my display case over here. But it's just amazing the kind of stuff. Now, this is really, really cool. Okay. And I've got 3 things to show you here that kind of go in together. Everybody's heard the How to Become a Millionaire speech by Earl Schoth. I released that in 2005, I believe it was. There's the record that it came from.
Wow.
That was at a NutriBio rally in 1962.
And this right now, people can listen to this on your YouTube channel right now.
That's correct. That's correct. I put it on there for free. But here's the thing. People kept asking me, is there anything else from Earl? Well, I'm going to get to that. Now, when I released the speech, it was originally called How to Get Everything You Want Out of Life. This is one of the very first ones. And look who signed it for me. You recognize the signature?
Jim Rohn.
Yep. I went to see him for his 75th birthday. He was given a Challenge to Succeed seminar in Rohnert Park, California. I thought that was really fun. Rohnert Park. That's really hilarious. But Jerry Haynes, I can't thank that man enough for everything that he's done for me and for Jim and for everybody else. But Jerry Haynes was the promoter for that event. And I've got to tell you the story one time about, I wish we had more time. Gosh, this is such a good story. But I got Jim to sign one CD for me. I gave Jim the very first one. I framed it and put a picture of Earl Schoaf on each side. And I made a little note for Jim and I signed it. And this CD was in the center. And I gave him this for his 75th birthday. But
Wow.
Number 2. And he signed number 3 for Jerry Haynes. Jerry's got the only other one that's ever been signed.
Golly.
Now, when this came out, Success Magazine they loved it and they wanted to start selling it. So they sell a version of it now. And if you'll look, I got to get the camera loaded up. There we go. Right as that said right there. Featuring an introduction by Ron Henley. So my introduction is on there. So yeah, that's pretty dadgum cool. But
Super cool.
Yeah, speaking of Earl, I showed you this record set that I got from Automotive Performance that I can't wait to tear into this thing, man. You talk about memories flooding back. When Rich told me about this event that NutraBio had in July of 1961 called Christmas in July, held in Chicago, Bob Cummings was getting ready to launch a brand new TV show called Love That Bob. And Bob Cummings was huge back then, guys. I mean, he was huge. So this had a lot of attention. NutraBio had made the deal to be the exclusive sponsor of the Love That Bob show. So they were going to go crazy with this thing.
Right.
Millions of dollars of product in the warehouses ready to go. That event was recorded. ABC TV was there. Because Bob Cummings was involved, there was enough of a public interest to where ABC TV came there and filmed the daggum event. Now, can you imagine that happening today? But Rich told me, he said the entire thing was recorded, and I haven't seen the records in 50 years. He said, just a few years after, they were recorded in 61, NutraBio went out of business in 63. He said, I haven't seen one since, but they're out there. And buddy, guess what I've got? I just got this.
I was on your YouTube when you unwrapped it live.
Oh, yeah? I got this thing, man. I cannot tell you how happy I am about this. I just wish Rich and Jim were here.
Look right on the cover. It says ABC TV on the cover.
ABC Network right there. Whoop, wrong hand. There we go. Right there. ABC TV Network.
Hey, can you guys imagine, just like Ron said, that if we did a big meeting today in network marketing and a major network showed up to actually televise it and record it?
Yeah. ABC TV went up to Rich and their jaws were on the floor. They said they'd never seen anything like it. People were standing up on the tables, Robert.
Yeah.
They were jumping on, they were cheering and screaming. It's about to tear the place apart. I mean, the excitement. I mean, you could feel it. You could feel the excitement in that room. And I always enjoyed Rich telling me that story. It's really, really cool. But let's see what else have I got here. I can show you one more thing. Well, 2 more things.
Okay.
William Penpatrick started Holiday Magic. A sewing machine salesman named Glenn W. Turner joined Holiday Magic in 1967. Glenn Turner left Holiday Magic and started Coscot Interplanetary. Coscot was K-O-S-C-O-T. It stood for Cosmetics with a K for the COT, Citizens of Tomorrow. Very futuristic. And it was in where's the part of Florida? Is it Cape Canaveral, Florida, and all that, where the space stuff is? They used to launch rockets and all that. Right. It was near there, so he wanted to capitalize on all that NASA stuff. But check this out. Once you got to the top position in the Coscot Interplanetary pay plan, you got a set of cufflinks.
What?
Yes, sir. Is that not cool?
That's super cool.
Now, speaking of this is something that I have never seen before or since. And I'm going to try to get it up here so everybody can see it. This is a pen. It's a regular writing pen, but it's got this window
right there.
Yeah. Okay. So this is Glenn W. Turner, founder of Coscott Cosmetics, August 22nd, 1967.
I've never seen anything like that ever.
Is that too cool? Yeah, I wish I could go through everything back here with you guys.
Wow.
It's just unbelievable. My wife keeps telling me, and Larry Thompson has told me, and everybody's telling me, look, you need to pick a few things and just do a video about it. So that's what I'm going to start doing. So,
well, I've been one of those people that have not only been one fan, Ron, but
thank you for staying on me.
I'm beating up on you all the time. I hope you guys enjoyed this, man. This is so cool.
Gosh, how much time is it? We're an hour and a half into this thing. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Just about 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, because you're passionate about what you love, man. So, Craig, really quickly, was there any major questions in there that Ron could answer?
Actually, I have 3 questions from a gentleman here, and I actually kind of think all 3 of them apply. So, Ron, here we go. Here's question 1, and it comes from Coach Bob Johnson.
Okay.
First question. Ron, I love your Jim Rohn Mastermind group. Been a member for a long time. Now, of course, he says, have you met Jim? Which obviously you shared. You did. You knew him personally.
Once or twice.
Now, would you consider some of the things that you just shared earlier your favorite story or favorite saying of his? Can you share? What would be your favorite story of Jim?
Oh, favorite story of Jim?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
I know what it is.
Which one?
Talk about the crossing of the T.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Ron, now you know I'm paying attention, right?
Hang on a second. This deserves the actual prop.
Ron,
okay,
now you know I listen to you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. When I talked earlier about this blue case that kept sliding off the bookcase and hit me in the head, this is it. This is it. And these are the actual tapes that scattered all over the floor. And there is Jim's signature. And man, I'm telling you, when you got somebody like Jim telling you you're the best, you bust your butt every day living up to it, you know?
Amen.
But here's the deal. Now, Jim, Kyle Wilson, who is, there's no way to put into words how much everybody owes Kyle Wilson for everything that he did for Jim, making Jim known, getting Jim marketed, creating so many products. Without Kyle, Jim would not have been what he turned out to be. I'm telling you, there's just no way. But if you'll look on Google, you'll see a picture that Kyle signed. I mean, the Jim Rohn signed for Kyle, and it says, Kyle, you are the best, Jim Rohn. But you'll notice there's something very, very weird about it. The T in best is not crossed. So when Jim signed these for me, I said, I want a unique Jim Rohn autograph. And he said, I don't understand. I said, you never crossed the T in best. You never do it. And he looked down at it and he goes, oh, I never noticed that. I guess I don't do it. So I said, I want you to cross my T, just playing around. And he very deliberately went, okay. And he made a very dramatic gesture to put that pen down and cross that T. And I think I've got the only crossed best in existence.
Coach Bob, if you're watching this, that's why that's my favorite story of Ron and Jim Rohn.
I've got one more though.
Go ahead.
This is really, really cool stuff. Now, if I'm telling this, if you see the hair stand up on my arms, you'll understand. But again, at this Rohnert Park, we flew out for Jim's 75th birthday. I was in we were sitting at the Oakland airport. Me and Jim were sitting there for an hour or so, waiting on Jerry to come and pick us up. And man, the conversations we had in that hour, mind-blowing stuff. But I had told Rich, I'd been talking to Rich Snackenberg, and I said, hey, I'm going to go see the Farm Boy this weekend. And he said, well, tell him I said hello. I said, I will. I'll tell him. So we get Jerry pulls up at the Oakland airport. We walk out, and Jim, being the humble man that he is, starts to get in the back seat. I said, Jim, get up here in the front with Jerry. What are you doing? He said, well, I didn't know. I'm like, are you kidding me, man? Come on, get up front. I'll sit in the back. Come on. So we head down the road, and I just got the inkling. I've still got the flip phone upstairs. I never got rid of it because of what happened on this flip phone. Okay. As we're driving along, Jerry took out his Earl Schoaf CD and plugged it in. He didn't say anything to Jim. He just had it playing very, very low, right? Kind of background stuff.
Right.
And we're driving along, talking about different things. It's about an hour's drive to where we're going from Oakland to Roanoke Park. And all of a sudden, there's like this lull in the conversation. And Jerry said, hey, Jim, you recognize this guy? Jim kind of leans in, and then this big smile comes on his face. And he said, the man himself, talking about Cadillacs. So he's listening. Okay, me and Jerry and Jim are in the car listening to Earl. Okay, now that's a moment, right? That's a moment. But I wanted to top it. So I called Rich Schnackenberg on the phone. I call Rich and I say, Rich, guess who's in front of me? He said, it's got to be Jimmy boy. I said, yes, sir, it is. And I said, hey, Jim, I've got Rich on the phone. He said, give me that phone. So I hand Jim my phone and he's talking to Rich. Okay, we're going down the road, listening to Earl Schoaf and listening to Jim Rohn talk to Rich Schnackenberg. You talk about, man, I'm sitting in that car and I'm telling you, time stopped.
No kidding.
Ceased to exist. The intersection of past and present and future just coincided there in those few minutes. And I will never forget that feeling of awe, of reverential awe that came over me. And I'm getting chill bumps still. I mean, that happened, God, almost 20 years ago, and I'm still getting hair. My hair arm's still standing up because of it. But those are two of my favorite Jim Rohn stories. So
awesome.
Wow. Here's another one from Jim or from Bob, and then I have one from Faith, and we'll call it from there.
Okay.
The other one from Bob is, I see your father and grandmother were mentored by Zig Ziglar. Do you have any good stories from that time?
Only the ones that I shared before. When you're 5 years old, you really don't have the awareness of what's going on. But like I said, I remember the best moments are meeting Zig Ziglar personally after hearing his voice and doing all those Zig talks. Getting in front of a room, sharing Zig Ziglar's wisdom. A 5-year-old kid, you just don't see that even today. But doing that was fun. Meeting Zig was amazing. And just seeing as a young kid what the business did for people. Not only the money, okay, the money's good. You can make a fortune, and it's not wrong to say so. If you choose to, depending on your personal activity level, once you learn the skill sets and the mindsets, there's only so much you can learn. You have to apply it, and your personal activity level will determine how much you make. That's totally up to you. But the lives that it changed, okay? I'm about, like I talked about it before, getting up, I'm a 5-year-old kid sitting there, right? My legs are swinging in the chair because my feet don't touch the ground. And I'm watching these grown men come up to my dad and my grandpa in front of a room of about 30 people, crying because they don't have the words to describe the feelings they're feeling because of what this business had done, not only monetarily that we've talked about, but the personal development caused them to grow as human beings and forever changed them. So when all that went away, the personal development stayed with them. So that, to me, every time I think about it, people say, well, what is this business? Okay. It's a simple product service distribution model. That's all it is. Yeah. When you don't need to complicate it more than that. But when I remember what it did to people, what it has done and what it will continue doing to people, that is what gets in my heart and in my soul. And that's what I'm trying to convey. That's why all of this is important, guys. We've got to preserve it. We've got to know, because if you don't, there's a saying out there, I'm loosely paraphrasing, but it says those who don't learn the mistakes of the past are doomed to repeat them.
Right.
Okay. We don't want to cover it up. We've had some bad times in network marketing. People have done some crazy things. Okay. We don't sweep them under the rug and pretend they never happened. We embrace them. We learn from them. We teach what not to do through real examples, through the memorabilia that tells the stories of what happened, what created these companies, what created these legends and icons, what to do, what not to do. That's why we've got to preserve this, guys. It's for the entire network marketing world. Even if you're not into network marketing, I guarantee you, if Joe Blow walks in off the street once this museum is open and walks in here wondering what the heck this is, they're going to be blown away.
Yeah,
even if you don't want anything to do with network marketing, this stuff is fascinating.
Yeah, I sit and think of, that room where Larry Thompson and Larry Huff were, and then it goes to Bill Gould, right, and Jim, and then Jeff Roberti that I get to work with.
Oh man, love Jeff.
Yeah, and just to think, just recently, I'm working with a group right now in Nigeria, right? And Joshua sends me a message from this guy, and this was the message, Ron, all these years later. And he's crying. The guy is crying because he used to be homeless. And he said, "Today I got to eat fish in my rice." And he goes, "I can't tell you the last time that happened to me. And I'm going to be able to impact so many people that don't believe anymore. They gave up hope." And I listened to it, and I'm not Nigerian. So I turn around and I say to Joshua, "Why did he say, that he got to put fish in his rice?" And he said, "Because people here are so broke, they can't put protein, fish or meat, in their rice." And so this guy's leaving a message and thanking us because he was able to put fish in his rice. And there's so many people in the world today, and this is not trying to be negative. I know Ron would agree, but all these people out there that are debating on, in my opinion, what scam is better than the other, and what product is better than the other, and what comp plan is better than the other. They don't understand. For me and Ron, this is a frickin' people business.
Yes.
This is a people business. And when people don't care what you know unless they know how much you care. And when people reach out to me and say, "I can't believe it's you. I can't believe it's you on the line." And the first thing that I thought of is, man, when I was on my knee crying out to God, that I met a couple of guys, Bill Gould and Jeff Roberti. Thank God. They, Herbalife had problems, and they just both jumped into NSA, and they're trying to remake a name for themselves. And so I catch these two guys trying to out earn each other and starting over from scratch. And I get to watch them do this business different than a majority of the people in this day and age. In this day and age, it's about, there's the majority of the people that I run into and have conversations have no freaking clue what this business really is about.
Right.
No clue.
It's exactly right.
So thanks for sharing that. I mean,
what did you share, man? That brought tears to my eyes because
my goal is still to take the stuff that these people taught me. And of course, as soon as I heard anything about Jim Rohn, I bought everything that he had. I heard that Bob Proctor, I don't know if you can confirm this, but Bob Proctor, I knew, was involved in network marketing. And so, he worked for Nightingale Conant.
Yeah.
And I can remember you had to put $2 in an envelope and send it to Chicago.
Yeah.
And they would
a lot of stuff happened in Chicago for some reason. I don't know what it is.
And they would send you a magazine. To think that you had to send a couple of dollars to Chicago. They would take Nightingale Conant catalog and they would send it to you.
Oh, man.
And I started buying programs from Jim Rohn out of that deal. And get this, you guys, if you didn't have money, they would allow you to pay payment.
Yes.
And would send you LPs and cassette tapes. That's where I learned from.
Oh yeah. Crazy days.
Oh,
Yeah.
my God.
Bob Proctor actually was, I think in 1959, I think he was in Amway
Oh, okay.
in Canada. It wasn't 59. It was when Amway opened up in Canada, because he's from Canada.
Yeah, that was 59, 60, 61 in
Yeah.
there.
And he actually went to a NutriBio meeting
Oh my God.
in Canada. So, you know, Jim and Bob did seminars together and they knew each other.
Right.
But how crazy is it to think that if it was NutriBio Canada, odds are Jim Rohn was on that stage while
Hell
Bob
yeah.
was sitting in the audience.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I just
Is that crazy?
like Ron talks about you talk about the 6 degrees of separation with Kevin Bacon.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you guys get to hear not only going back over 80 years, but this is where this all came from. This is where it all came from. And you know,
What are you four? Are you 4
Huh?
degrees from Rich Snackenberg? Didn't we figure that out?
Yeah.
Yeah. It goes to you, to Jeff Roberti, to Larry Thompson, to Larry Huff, and then to Bill Bailey, and then to Rich Snackenberg. So, yeah, that's crazy. It's
I
crazy.
love the hierarchy. I sure do. Any other questions, Craig?
Yeah, I got one more question, and
Bring it.
direct. It's from Faith Castillo.
Okay.
Ron, where is the museum?
Right now, it's in my garage. That's where we are. We're in my garage. I got a 2-story, 2-car garage that's shaped like a big barn. And I've got a whole storage area upstairs, and everything else is on the bottom. And I get to come out here every day in the midst of all this and do my work.
And so here's the goal for raising money, you guys.
Yes.
Send
to
this
get it
video,
out.
send this video to as many people as you can so we can
Please.
get what town are you in, Ron?
I'm in Lithia Springs. It's about 10 miles outside of Atlanta, Georgia.
If you had a perfect location for this museum, would it be someplace in Atlanta?
I'm looking at Atlanta. I'm also looking at maybe near the airport.
Okay.
There's a lot of people come in, you know, from the airport or whatever they're coming. So I'm looking at, you know, just prices are crazy, but I'm looking at trying to get something. I actually almost had a deal once to get this moved into a self-storage unit that was air conditioned and environmentally controlled. And I had everything lined out. I was going to get this big space to get it out. And as people came, I was going to open the doors and show everybody, right? Just to get the thing going.
Right.
Well, I'm reading the dadgum contract, and the contract says that for whatever reason they want, they can open my door and move all my crap to another unit. And I'm like, wrong answer. So that didn't work out. There ain't nobody getting their hands on this stuff, man. It's, you know.
So I don't know if you guys agree with me. We got Bob Johnson. He donated $10, and again, I'll match it for
Thank you,
every
Bob.
dollar.
Thank you. Thank
But
you.
we'll watch this as people put money in, and we'll make sure, Ron, that you get all that money. You do believe I'm good for it, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, brother. I told you, you know, Jim used to go around and say, if he were to get in trouble and get put in jail, he had 2 people he would call. For me, one of them's you.
Oh my God. I love you, brother.
Because I know you would be there.
I love you. There's no doubt. I'd even fly out and make sure you got out.
I know you would. I know you would. That's why I love you back, man.
Well, I love you, Ron. And Craig, let's go ahead and close this out. And Ron, I just love you. I wish I was there to give you a big bear hug. And I just thank you so much for your time today.
My great pleasure. Hey, let's do it again.
Yeah, we will. People been putting in here. When's the second? When's part 2?
Hey, yell at Robert. He'll set it up.
Yeah, for sure. Craig, close us out.
All right. Wow. What a great history lesson in network marketing. Ron, man, thank you so very much. Bless you. And Robert, of course, you know, your experiences too also add to this. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have posted all the different links to follow Ron in the chat. The main one, of course, is networkmarketinghistory.com, and that's where you can take a look at the actual website of Network Marketing History Historical Society and Museum. That's what is online, and we're going to try to help him build more than just the online presence, although that's a great start. Oh my gosh. And then of course you can follow Ron on his YouTube channel by going to youtube.com/@Ron Henley, RONHENLEY. So you've got several ways to follow him, and we'll post the links in the description below. So those of you that are watching the replay can also find all of these links and this great information. Ron, thank you again. Robert, wow. And of course, you can follow Robert Hollis at roberthollis.com. You can also follow Robert on YouTube at roberthollis.com/YouTube, on Instagram at instagram.com/official Robert Hollis, and on TikTok at tiktok.com/@real Robert Hollis. Please don't forget to like and share this video on YouTube and share it with others. It's a great piece. Lots of fantastic information and a history of network marketing. It's also going to help us grow our community and reach those with ears to hear. Robert's schedule normally is Sunday through Friday at 12 p.m. Pacific, with his going lives every day. Plus, Ask Me Anything on Saturdays at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, where you get to ask Robert any question you would like. We will present it to him and he will answer it, whatever that is. That's on Saturdays at noon Pacific. Then, of course, you've got the How Do You Know That podcast, like today, starts at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. That's every Wednesday. And then on Thursdays are the Inner Circle Breakthrough Sessions. Now, you do have to be part of the Inner Circle, and it's very easy to join by going to roberthollis.com/join. You'll become part of the Inner Circle. We had somebody join today, Wendy Olayoriju. Thank you so much for joining us, for being part of the Inner Circle. Those Inner Circle Breakthrough Sessions are Thursdays starting at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And of course, we got to give a shout out to our executive producer and visionaire, Matt Hollis. Thank you so much for being our foundation for everything that we do here. And of course, Robert. Bless you, man.
Well, thank you so Craig. Much. Thank you, Craig. We'll shut this down. I just wanted to put it out there. We raised $330 for Ron today. I'm matching it dollar for dollar, so that's $660 is going his way. But we'll keep track. We'll keep track of this and continue to send that money your way. So thank you, Craig. Thank you, Ron. Love you guys and have a great day.